Welcome to the Money Down. We have ESPN senior insider Adam Schefter taking this time out of his busy schedule to come chat with us. We appreciate we definitely appreciate the time.
It's an honor to be with a bunch of Badgers here.
All Wisconsin, baby.
All Wisconsin, sure.
No, the Wolverines are on top now. We can't say much. You guys are the reigning champs, so you guys got the crown for now.
For now.
Well, it was a great year. It was a great year, and Michigan's going to be rewarded for it during the draft. There's going to be a lot of players picked, and it should be a fun night for that school.
100%. But before we get into any draft talk, we want to kind of talk about your journey to where you are, right now, being the most trusted source, especially in the NFL, as far as relaying information. How many years did it take you to get to this point? Was it always something that you wanted to do, or did something kind of spark you into getting to where you are now?
Well, thank you for the kind words. And I would just say that I've been doing this now for 35 years. And I started covering the NFL back in 1990. September of 1990, I was a 23-year-old kid. I moved out to Denver, Colorado. And I think all of us in any line of work, you look for something to do, and sometimes you stumble into something, right? So I go to Denver, and we could go back before that, but if I go back to when I was at Michigan, I'll give you a couple of examples. I go out for a fraternity my freshman year, and there's like 50 guys rushing for 10 spots. All my buddies get in. I don't. So when I don't get into the fraternity, I'm like, well, I got to do something. I've always been the kind of guy that liked to be busy and productive. So I went down to the football office to see if they needed somebody to pick up jock straps and hand out water bottles. You guys know you guys know the kind of guy that I would have been, just kind of hanging around. And so they didn't need anybody. And I went down to the basketball office to see if they needed somebody, and they didn't need anybody. I'm like, okay, well, we got rejected so far from the fraternity, from the football office, from the basketball office. What could I do? Like, I got to do something while I'm here. And truly, the student newspaper was the only place that didn't say no and wouldn't say no. They welcomed all comers. And so I went down to the student newspaper as a fourth option after being rejected over and over, and started writing, not having any aspirations about doing that for a living, not thinking that this is something that you could turn into a profession. Started doing it, started liking it, go out to Denver in September of 1990 after 4 years of writing for the student newspaper, going to graduate school at Northwestern for a year, trying to get a job and being rejected for 2 straight years. And the first job I get is out in Colorado. I didn't pick Colorado. Colorado chose me. I would have gone anywhere, North Dakota, South Dakota, Idaho. Like it didn't matter where I was going, Shreveport, Louisiana. Just let me at it. I wanted a job. It just so happened to be in Denver. It was a general assignment reporter job. I did a lot of Denver Broncos, a lot of NFL, some University of Colorado. Got to cover the team that won the national championship. And it shows you how much I knew, because I, at that time, thought it would be great to be a baseball beat writer. And when Colorado was awarded the Colorado Rockies in the early 1990s, I interviewed for that job and didn't get it, and was forced, and I tell this story, forced to stay on football. So for all the times I didn't think about going to do it or tried to break away from it, through no choice of my own, I was kind of relegated to keep doing it and forced to stay with it. And it just shows you how dumb and naive I was, because if I had had my way, I would have gone and covered the Colorado Rockies. And no disrespect, but I mean, baseball compared to football, come on.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
And so everything has just been an accident like that all along the way. No great plan on my part. Just always tried to work hard, treat people right, and let it go where it will. And here we are on tonight with Warren and James and Sojourn here doing the Money Down podcast.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, you talked about your journey. How was it getting that call, or when and how did you find out that the big dogs, ESPN, was bringing you on board?
Well, that was also accidental, because my contract, honestly, my contract at NFL Network was expiring, and we had a disagreement about the way it should go and my value. And when I didn't take the offer that they made, they basically took me off the air. And when they took me off the air, which was something that greatly disappointed me, and had nightmares about it, was despondent about it, didn't want to have to leave there. ESPN came along and hired me. And so it wasn't like I was out soliciting ESPN. It wasn't like I set out to go to work for ESPN. It just kind of happened because NFL Network didn't happen at that time.
Yeah.
And it's just another example all along the way of all the times in life that it doesn't work out the way you want, whether it's not getting into the fraternity or not getting a job with the football or basketball team or not getting to cover the baseball team or not getting to stay at NFL Network. I mean, over and over, I could give you 10 more. Like it just never would go the way that I would want. And I tried to steer my life in one direction and it was steered in a completely different direction. And again, here we are. So I'm fortunate and blessed to not get in my own way the way that I would have if I was able to make the decisions that I wanted to make all along the way.
Yeah. We mentioned that earlier of you being like, the most trusted source of NFL insider, news. And I mean, it's true. Like we see it, and that's one of the reasons we love having you on. We're fortunate to have you on. But what is the recipe for you to stay in that spot, right? Everybody wants to get the insider information. Everybody wants to be the ones to deliver the first story. But what's been, the recipe for success for you to be able to be that week in and week out, month to month, year to year?
I appreciate the question. And I would just say that I guess it would be like when you guys played. What's the key to trying to play well every week? And what's the key to trying to make plays when you need? Just being consistent, trying to do the right thing, working hard in practice, making sure that you're reliable, that you don't make mistakes, that you build up the trust of your coaches through practice, through time, through repetition, through them seeing that they can count on you, right? It's the same in any profession. Yeah. So I've been doing this for 35 years, since 1990, and you'd like to think over time that you build up some relationships and the people that you form relationships with know that they can trust you. And as long as you can do that, show that, prove that, and continue to do it on a regular basis, then you'd like to think and hope that inevitably there'll be further conversations and more information exchanged and continuing to do the job the way you do, just like you're always trying to play a certain way. Yep. You're always trying to act a certain way. Mm-hmm. You're always trying to do things a certain way. So it's really probably a similar formula in whatever line of work you're talking about.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Good. I appreciate it.
I got to ask you, I know you have a very busy schedule. You have a family. How do you balance that? Because obviously, I'm sure you're on your phone constantly throughout the day. I'm sure the screen time is probably through the roof. So how do you find balance to, cover sports and spend time with your family as well?
I guarantee we're all in the same boat. James, you had to put the kids down tonight to get this podcast done, right?
Yeah.
I got sources who tell me that the kids are asleep now. My source is good or what?
Yeah, your source is good.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we all, there are times I like to do more work, and there are times I'd like to spend more family time, and there are times that you can't do everything as well as you want to do. Yeah. I think you probably do the best job you can with all the things that you have in your life, personally, professionally, but there's a balance. And, there are times where my professional life gets more of my attention, and there's times when my personal life gets more of my attention. And there's times when professionally I'm needed more so than personally. And there's times personally that I'm needed more so than professionally. Yeah. And you just hope that it works itself out and doesn't get mixed up and doesn't get screwed up. There are times where it does. It's unfortunate. You need some support. You need some understanding. And usually you get it. Not always, but usually you get it.
Not always.
Not always, right? There have been times where I've been at ESPN in Bristol for a week for free agency, and I come home, at the end of the week after I've been gone for a week, and I walk in, and all of a sudden, there's a trade or a signing or a move, and listen, my wife is very supportive, but after a while, she's like, "Isn't that enough?" You ready to get off there or what? And I'm like, well, hold on. There's this. I got to get this done. There's another move coming down. Hold on. And so, look, we're all trying to massage that and figure it out and make it work in the best way that we can. And sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's not. Like, even tonight, I'm working all day. We did a 2-hour draft special, and I got NFL, and so I get the request to do this. And so upstairs, hanging out with my wife talking, I'm like, just kind of feeling it all out. I'm like, I'm going to go down. I gotta go do this. I gotta go do the Money Down podcast.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah, we do for sure.
So I'll just tell you right now, if I go back upstairs and she's not talking to me, it's on you guys.
I apologize.
We apologize for sure.
Blame it on us.
Schefty, you talked about, just being, in the reporting business for over 30 plus years. One thing we like to talk about on the Money Down is just how much the game has evolved, right? You've seen it evolve probably a million times. How do you feel about all the moves that are being made these off seasons now? It's starting to kind of feel like a NBA all-star type deal where you have guys, best players being moved to super good teams. Diggs, Joe Mixon, all these guys are going to, kind of building not super teams, but super teams. How does that feel for you? Like, what do you think is the big reason for that?
I don't think it's any different than it's ever been. We could go back to a couple of off seasons ago, and there was an off season in which Devontae Adams was traded from the Packers to the Raiders. Tyreek Hill was traded from the Chiefs to the Dolphins. There were other trades and moves there. I mean, you're saying that now it feels fresh to you, but these are the kinds of moves that are made at this time of the year every year. It's no different. And we might be in a period here where players have more say and more power. That I might agree with, absolutely, where players have spoken up and have learned that if they get difficult or they call out the front office, that they can talk their way out of town sometimes. I think we've seen that, or act their way out of town sometimes. James wouldn't have done that, but other people have. and we've seen it carried out here in recent years. There may be a little bit more of that in recent years, but there have always been team players changing teams and moving on. And if Tom leaves New England and goes to Tampa, well, that was a big deal, right? Yeah. There's always Aaron Rodgers last year, going from Green Bay that was a big deal. There's always a big deal. The league is the greatest reality show going. And so just because Stephon Diggs was unhappy in Buffalo and wanted out and winds up in Houston on a team that seems to be ascending, I think those sort of things in one form or another play out annually.
Yep. Could you kind of walk us through? You don't have to give us the full details. What is it like for you when you're kind of getting notified somebody's about to get traded or released, like a big time name, like a Stephon Diggs, for instance? How do you find out about that first?
Every story is different. Some you're working on for weeks and know about for weeks. Other times it just can pop into your phone like, whoa. It's not often you're surprised by something, but sometimes like the speed at which that Diggs move went down surprised me like that morning, because I had been told a couple of weeks before that the Texans initiated that trade with the Vikings, and that everybody assumed that the Vikings made the trade to get extra first-round draft capital to be in a position to get a quarterback, when the Texans were the ones that brought the trade to the Vikings. Yeah. And it was them, because I think – so when you hear that, you're like, okay, well, why are they trying to get out of the first round? Why are they trying to get extra second-round draft capital? There's a reason for it, and the reason was to position themselves to be able to get a player like Stephon Diggs. And so that's what happened. And the trade that morning, I had been eyeing that particular situation for a couple of weeks and had been asking around on it. But then that morning, got a call like, "Hey, it's coming." I'm like, "Whoa!" Like, but then it was like it's coming, and then you're checking, and then like, yeah, it's done. Like, it's done. Like,
whoa!
like Aaron Rodgers last year, which was the big trade of last offseason. We're waiting on that one for months. Yeah. This was like minutes.
Yeah.
So it's just every trade's different, every story's different, every situation's different, and that's the way that one played out.
Before we continue, let's have a word from our sponsor, Prize Picks. With Prize Picks, all you have to do is bet over or under on some of your favorite athletes' projected stats, and you can win big prizes. Look, I'm a South Florida guy. When the NBA playoffs roll around, I'm betting big on all of Jimmy Butler's overs because we all know that's when he steps up. And when you sign up with Prize Picks using our promo code MONEYDOWN, Prize Picks will match up to $500 on your first deposit. I repeat, when you use our promo code MONEYDOWN, Prize Picks will match up to $500 on your first deposit. You can bet small and you can win big.
So out of all these big moves or just reporting and covering football, who's been your, I want to say, favorite or, player that you enjoy just covering the most, whether that be reporting or, getting a chance to talk to? Who's somebody that, once your career is over with and done with, you'll say, I truly enjoy talking to this person or covering?
Well, you'd be amazed at how classy and gracious the greatest people are sometimes. Like,
that's good.
The two quarterbacks of your era, James, Tom and Peyton, right? Both of them, the way they've handled themselves, and I've had various dealings at various points with each one of them, and both have been so impressive to me in so many different ways. So, and look, Tom in ways that I never would, in the way that most of us never would, but I always thought he was a great guy, truly, like a great guy, genuine, as genuine and really nice.
Yeah.
That and he also had a little bit of a that
got edge to him too.
Yes. There you go. Right. I've heard that edge a couple of times, and so just incredibly impressive, and Peyton just very thoughtful. So those are a couple of guys that stand out. And one of my favorite guys always was Larry Fitzgerald. I always had positive interactions, and was so impressed with how he was and how classy he was, and always loved dealing with him, whatever interactions I had. Every year there'd be some team that wanted to trade for him, and I'd say, "Hey, Larry, what do we think this year?" No. Okay. I never wanted to be traded, but you feel fortunate to have your career cross paths with so many people who are so fantastic at what they do, and it's really a great honor.
100%. And I wanted to ask you too, you started in journalism. Now we're in 2024. Media is pretty much like all digital now. So what's your thoughts on that? Obviously you're on our podcast. There's a million podcasts out there. What's your thoughts on how things have shifted?
Including the Adam Schefter podcast. It's a world that I never would have imagined. It's a world I never would have recognized. I remember at one point in time when I was a newspaper writer at the Denver Post, and I was considering becoming a national writer for a different media outlet. And I thought to myself, wow, so if I become a national guy instead of just a Denver guy, that means that I would be responsible for anything that happens at any point in time. So I could be on a date Saturday night and there could be a trade. And I don't want to do that.
Little did you know.
So, there are so many things about the job that we do now, the way the world operates. I can't even believe how it is. The speed at which things move, the way that information is disseminated. it's crazy. It's just unbelievable that somebody could text me something and I could just press it and then boom. And it used to be that in the newspaper business, if you get a story, you'd follow it to the newspaper. 8:00 at night, the newspaper would show up the next morning at 6 a.m. on your front doorstep. You read them. John Elway's retiring? Yeah. John Elway's retiring? Wow. He retired last night. The story's in the newspaper. And then we'll get to it again the next morning. Tomorrow morning's newspaper. Like, that's the world I lived in 16 years. And now, that news cycle's gone from 24 hours to 24 seconds and even quicker. And it's just remarkable how much it's shifted and how everybody's got a voice and everybody thinks they're a reporter and everybody's screaming out on social media. The Patriots are drafting.
Yes, that's
right. And so somebody's going to scream out after they draft whoever they draft. I told you that I was the first one to say that they drafted Drake May.
Yeah.
But the 10 guys that got to run, they're not going to say, I had him taking Jaden Daniels, right? I'm taking J.J. McCarthy. I'm not going to do that. No. Everybody's a reporter. Everybody wants to be first. Everybody wants, the attention. I said this. I'm glad I'm at this spot
now
in my career rather than trying to establish myself. I'll say that.
Yeah. You know what? You were talking, you're talking about, gave an example of like the Patriots drafting Drake May, right? Like,
If that's what they do.
If that's what they do.
Yeah, I've done enough podcasts now where I say things and all of a sudden, I'm reporting that they're taking this guy.
Well, before I ask, let me preface this with your thoughts and opinion, mock top 5. Like, who would be your top 5 and how do you
I wouldn't do that because I'll say this to you. I think Caleb Williams will go number 1. You want to put that on the ticker at ESPN? Yes. I feel like there is. I think it's tracking, but again, I expect Caleb Williams to go 1. Notice how I said that.
Yeah.
I think it's tracking for Jaden Daniels to be 2, but Washington's got all the quarterbacks in this week. Let's see what they decide. There's still 10 days. People change their minds. There's a lot that happen. Yeah. Again, if you're asking, I'm guessing. I want to be clear. I'm guessing that Jaden would be the 2nd pick today. I don't know that, but that's my guess. And now the 3rd pick. Now we're into an interesting area. My guess would be that Drake May goes 3rd. And the question is it New England? Is there a team that trades up to get that spot to go get Drake? We're going to see. And by the way, this is how I feel on Monday night at 9:25 Eastern as we tape this. You can ask me Tuesday night, 9:25. I reserve the right to change my mind.
Yep. Get new information.
And 4 and 5 would be 2 prime spots to trade out. So we'll see how that works out.
For sure.
Wow, you really Arizona has what, 4?
4.
Yeah.
Arizona has 4.
The Chargers have 5. Well, but I'm saying that if 3 quarterbacks go in the top 3 picks, which we all believe to be the case, the one quarterback that's still there, I think Arizona's going to be getting calls from whoever didn't get to 3, or if New England trade out of 3, they might want to come back up, or there's a lot of ways it goes. Minnesota going to come up, Denver, the Raiders.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of teams that could make a move, and we'll see how that plays out.
AZ needs to grab Marvin. But I want to ask you this. With all this information that you have, do you ever put on your GM cap and it's like, if I was this team, I would do this? Or when certain teams make certain moves, you're like, I don't know about that. I would have did X, Y, and Z.
Hold on.
Get some now.
Let me see.
Hold on.
Oh man.
Okay. Okay. I don't know that I put a GM hat on. I think you just try to think about things a certain way, like a detective trying to piece them together and trying to solve the puzzle. And sometimes you're able to, and sometimes you're not able to. And sometimes, what's interesting is sometimes you could speak to a player and know what he's thinking, or sometimes you can speak to a team and sometimes oh boy, this is going to happen, and both sides don't realize it yet, and you do.
Yeah.
Like I've had that happen too. Like I'm like, oh, this player wants out, and they don't want to. He's done. He doesn't know he's done, but he's done.
Yeah.
I've had that happen too.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, when you got times like free agency and like transactions are going, everything's moving so fast.
Yeah.
When the draft comes around, you having transaction talks. Like, what's that like for you? Is that just like energetic adrenaline? Like you love that moment when everything's flying around, anything can happen. What's that like for you? Those moments where just so much is going on, and you're getting all this information.
That's what it's like. It's like there's so much going on. That is what it's like. What's it like to play in a 2-minute warning? You're down, you're trying to score, you're scrambling, and you're running around and you're trying to make plays and you're trying to pull out the game. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And when it does, it's exhilarating. And when it doesn't, it's disappointing. And so all those things are happening. And again, we're talking about my job, but my job is similar to, I guarantee, a lot of other jobs in the way that it's approached, and the feelings that you have, in the craziness of the business, in the information age that we're living in. Like, it's a different deal. But the job that I do, though, it's just public. It's just a little bit more public. So anytime you're reporting anything, it's on Twitter, basically. Or X, so people see everything that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Right? And so there are people doing jobs who people don't see everything. Like, there are lawyers, there are traders, there are stockbrokers, there are financial analysts, there are architects, there are teachers. Everybody in any line of work makes mistakes. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
But how many of them make the mistakes and have everybody watching?
Yeah.
An athlete does. An athlete does. If you're making a mistake in a game, not always, but oftentimes people notice. If it's a fumble, like you could have a missed assignment and people might not know.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But if it's a big enough mistake, people will notice. And they'll rip you about it, right? So
that's my next question for you. Like, how do you handle that? How do you handle social media? Because I'm sure there's plenty of people, on Instagram, Twitter, constantly mention you, trying to get a reaction out of you. And it's just like athletes, when you mess up, there's going to be people sending you messages on your DMs and everything. How do you handle that for yourself?
I think probably, again, like the way you do. I think you just try to do the best job you can to block out as much noise as you can. And I like to think that I do a pretty good job of that. I don't think I'm immune to blocking out everything because sometimes messages seep through the wall or get through, right?
Yeah, people cross the line too.
For sure. That's true too. You do the best job you can to block out as much noise as you can, and like I said, I think I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not infallible at it. And sometimes you hear something like you get a call from somebody, hey, what do you think of that? And I'm like, what about it? I'm like, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now you do. Like, so, right? Like, I'll bet you that's happened to James. You ever were playing and like somebody wrote something or said something or on the radio or a newspaper or whatever it is, and like, hey, what do you think of that?
Ask the question. You get asked the question.
What they say? Oh, they say you stink.
That's news to me.
You know that. So, that means I'm doing a pretty good job blocking out the noise, but I'm not doing a good enough job of blocking out all the noise. Sometimes it gets through.
I got to ask you too about this year's running back class. I know I've been hearing most likely there won't be.
Great.
Yeah, won't be any guys going to the first round. Do you think there's any chance?
No,
not this year. Not a big shot at all. One of those years, tough.
Nope.
Do you have any inclination to why that is now? That I know obviously
it's just, first of all, you've got a lot of wide receivers in this draft, and I think again, I'm going to guess that some of these guys that they go to college, and you would know this better than me, some of them are probably shifting to play wide receiver. There's more money there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So some of them probably came in as a running back and like they transitioned over to wide receiver. But, we may get 6, 7 first-round picks as wide receivers. We may get 8, 9 offensive linemen picked in the first round. Like there's only so many first-round spots. You're going to get 5, 6 quarterbacks picked in. So let's say we get 5 quarterbacks, 8 offensive linemen, 7 wide receivers. That's 20 of the 32 right there.
Yeah.
And
tight end is 20. Tight end is 21. By the way, I think the record for offensive players in the first round of the draft ever is 19. And I think I think there's a real chance to break it this year.
To beat it,
to become the most offensive players ever drafted in round 1 this year.
Yeah, you got a lot of good ones coming out too.
You have any guy that people aren't really talking about that you kind of have an inclination that may go in the first round? Somebody who, maybe on the edge of the first, second round. It could be a receiver since all these guys potentially could go, in the first round.
Again, I think some of these offensive, like Marius Mims, I think is going to go in round 1.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that I think started 5 games last year. And I still think he's going to be a first-round pick this year. The kid from Duke, the center guard from Duke, he's going to go, and I expect him to be a first-round pick. Some people wouldn't necessarily expect that. So, again, I'll give you some offensive linemen, but I think that'll wind up happening.
Yeah, that definitely happened.
Oh, for sure.
Heard you're a big NBA guy too. So NBA playoffs about to roll around.
Yeah,
you have a go-to team. Who you like?
I'm a bigger NBA fantasy guy than I am NBA real life guy.
Okay.
And like it's funny during the season, I could tell you. Probably I'd have more success telling you about the 10th guy on a team's roster than I could a team's one-loss record, right? Like, I'm just telling you, like, wow, Trey Lyles off the bench from Sacramento when he comes in. He's pretty good. And Dante Exum had a renaissance career in Dallas as the backup guard every now and then. And the Nets had some – late round revelations, Noah Clowney and I think his name is Trent Watford playing in the backup positions.
Hey, that's good. Hey, that's good to know though. That's good.
I know that better than I know the 34th round talents in this draft.
I don't know them either, honestly. And the NBA regular season it's completely different now. It's almost hard to watch. When I turn it on, guys getting blown out by 20 or whatever. It's just not as competitive. But I think the playoffs should be fun this year. I don't even know who's going to win it. It's got OKC's the number 1 seed and all that, so that's different. And LeBron, Steph Curry, everybody, they're getting up there, man. So we only got a few years left of having all these guys in the league. So
the West is loaded, though. Like, you got OKC, you got Minnesota, Denver is the reigning champ. You mentioned LA, Golden State. Dallas is loaded this year. The Clippers are like – the West,
they have to win it this year.
I think you can make an argument. You can make a case for just about anybody in that conference coming out. Just about.
Yeah, right? It definitely can. I don't know who's going to win it though. Honestly, I think OKC has a legit chance. I think the Timberwolves even got a legit chance. You don't think they got a legit chance to win it, man?
No, I do. I just. And they've been great this year. And who knew that all those pieces would fit together the way they have? But I would just say that. I trust some of the other teams more until Minnesota shows me and proves me that they can get it done. And if they can, good for them. Yeah, that'd be great. Karl Anthony Towns is tremendous. Anthony Edwards is an unbelievable.
For sure. Playoff experience is a real thing.
Kyle Anderson, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley. Naz Reid has been tremendous this year.
Right? You know what? I don't know if I've ever heard, your greatest of all time. All the basketball guys talk about GOAT debates and things, but who is your greatest of all time?
Well, I grew up with Bird and Magic, right? So that those were the guys that I grew up, and then Michael came along, so it would be those three. But as a little boy, I grew up on Long Island, and I loved Julius Erving. Loved.
I got you.
he was like Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And then Michael took it to the next level.
Different. Yeah.
And Larry Bird and Magic, those guys were they were off the charts.
I hear that.
And just phenomenal. And by the way, like I've been fortunate enough to have some interactions with Magic over the years from the time that I was going to school at Michigan. And I went and covered a basketball game, and I got to go into the Lakers locker room when he was still playing. And that tells you how long I've been doing this. And he was gracious and welcoming and cooperative. And you know what the word that I like to use that I think carries over and is representative of a way a guy handles himself on and off the field? He was professional with me.
Yeah.
Like even back then, Magic was when I was a college student. So
you could tell too, because it turns to his business savvy as well. He's a great businessman.
Shocking, right?
Yeah.
No surprise.
All ties in together. We appreciate you taking the time, out for us tonight, Adam. Know you have a busy schedule. Hopefully your wife isn't too mad at us, but you can put it on up.
Hey, you can be mad at you.
We wish you the best of luck.
Wish you the best of luck. And obviously, excited to watch the draft. I'll be watching you on TV, so it'll be fun to watch this upcoming draft as well.
Warren, Sojourn, James, pleasure to be with you guys. I'm glad we could get this done. Thank you for having me tonight. Enjoyed talking with all of you tonight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.